Loops are used for multiple repetitions of a single task. In order for us to understand what that means, if for example we want to print in the console, so debug.log, and we want to print this 10 times, so print 10 times. We will need to type this, like copy it and paste it, copy and paste it. So we need to do this 10 times in order to print to the console. If we use a loop, we can only write that once. Let me first demonstrate the for loop, which is the first loop that we want to use, and now I will explain what that means. So we write for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, close parentheses, open close curly brackets. What this means? This means for int I, which is equal to 0, as long as I is less than 10, increment I by 1 and repeat what's inside of this multiple times. This plus plus here is equivalent, for example, if we have int A is equal to 1. If we want to add 1 to our A variable, we will not write A is equal to A plus 1. We can do this, but a shortcut for this is simply typing A plus plus. This will simply take A, which is at the moment 1, and it will add 1 to it. This is the same thing right here. And we can do the same thing with minus minus. This will subtract 1. So instead of typing A is equal to A minus 1, we can simply type A minus minus, and these right here are 1 and the same thing, or the result is the same. So it will subtract 1 from A. The same thing we are doing here, but with our I variable. So we are adding 1. Here we can type debug.log, and here we can type printed. So printed, and we can append I. So we can say plus I in order to concatenate I with the string. And we will see, because I at the moment is equal to 0. And we are going to loop 10 times because we are going to loop until I is less than 10. So in first iteration, I is equal to 0. Then we are going to iterate here. So I is 0, and we are going to print here, and then we are going to increment I. So next iteration, I is equal to 1. And then next iteration, I is equal to 2, so on and so forth, up to when I is no longer less than 10. Let us print this to the console and demonstrate what I am talking about. I'm going to clear the console and I'm going to run this, and we see that it's printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9. Up to I is less than 10. Because when I is equal to 10, this right here will not be true anymore. Because 10 is not less than 10. And we can see here from 0 up to 9. So that is in total 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And you can count it yourself, and you can see here number 10, or how many lines has been printed in the console. So every iteration, I will be incremented by 1, and we will execute the code that is right here. So instead of using this debug.log, so instead of typing here 10 times, copy and paste 10 times, we can simply use this loop, or this is called a for loop. And we can use this loop and then simply print it, or write one line of code and print this 10 times, which is much easier. And again, this means for int I, which is equal to 0, as long as I is less than 10, print or execute the code that is right here, and then increment I by 1. And we saw that in action again. So we see here printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 9. Because as long as I is less than 10. When I reaches 10, and we know that 10 is not less than 10, 10 is equal to 10, the loop will stop and it will not execute anymore. So this was a for loop. We have one more loop, which is called a while loop. And it goes like this: while, open close parentheses, open close curly brackets. Now, what we type here needs to be true, and as long as that is true, we will execute the code that is right here. If we want to create something similar like this in a while loop, we need to do it like this. We need to type int a is equal to 0, and here we can type as long as a is less than 10, we can use here debug.log, and instead of incrementing I or appending I right here, concatenating it with the string, we can concatenate a, and here we need to type a++. This is really important for a while loop, because using a while loop, especially for beginners, it's very dangerous that we can enter an infinite loop. That is a loop that will never end and it will crash our program. So if we don't type this right here, and here we have typed a is equal to 0. As long as a is less than 10, 0 will be forever less than 10. So never and never ever will 0 be greater than 10, meaning that this will be an infinite loop. It will run until we terminate the program by ourselves. And that is why we need to add this a++ right here at the end. So I'm going to comment this line of code right here, and I'm going to clear the console, and I'm going to run the code now. We are going to see the same outcome. So printed 0, 1, 2, up to 9 times. And we did the same thing, but now with our while loop instead of our for loop. So this is the only difference between the two. We type the condition of the loop right here in the for loop, but for our while loop, we need to type it here, and then we need to provide something that will end our loop. Because as I said, if we did not type this right here, our program would crash, because 0 will be forever less than 10. And then our program will run infinitely until it crashes. So in short, these were the loops that we can use to repeat one task multiple times. And don't worry, we will also use this inside of our game development, because they are also important, especially for arrays, which we are going to take a look at next. In processing arrays, for loops are very important, and we are going to use arrays a lot in our project. So let's take a look at arrays next.